All right, welcome everyone. This is gonna be another live feed. This video will probably encompass really two totally different videos, but I'm going to take pieces of both of those and combine it into this particular video. It has everything to do with our economy relative to the trucking economy, if you will, as well as an email that I received today from an individual asking for some advice. Now that was a timely email because I think it's something that a lot of individuals are considering, and so I thought this would make for a good video. Because I think a lot of people are pondering the same exact situation relative to greener pastures. Before I dive into this, let me, while a few people are jumping in, let me pull this up on my channel so I can see some of the questions. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the data that's ongoing to current data for transportation and what we see in our economy, because it has everything to do with the next piece of this, which is leaving for greener pastures. When is the right time to leave an industry or leave a job, right? So I think this might provide some explanation to that. So a quick snapshot for just the U.S. economy here. Over the past 3 consecutive months, labor rates, the markets have added over 200,000 jobs each month for the last 3 months. That's really, really strong growth. That obviously has a really big impact. More people who are employed are making more money, have more money to spend, more disposable income that they're going to spend. When they spend that disposable income, that means they're purchasing stuff from retail or warehouses, Amazons, that sort of stuff, which means shipping is increased. So some really strong numbers that we're seeing in the data in the markets right now. The data is showing. The data also shows, so we kind of peel back one layer of the onion. We talk about those jobs and as it relates to disposable income. The retail spending is improving significantly here in Q2. Now, when you look at sort of some of the big holidays, as we just had the 4th of July, typically what you see are the few weeks leading up to that. You'll see a really significant spike in shipping, right? Because customers, retailers, not customers, but consumers, want product, retailers need product. So you see a really significant spike in shipping product into those stores the week of that holiday. Again, 4th of July is kind of that summer holiday. People want to take vacations. It's the 4th of July. So people take time off. And we see during that week is when we tend to see less things being shipped, right? Again, it's the kind of the same story for a lot of other the major holidays that we see. 4th of July is just a little bit unique because it's in the summer when people are most active, right? And they want to go buy things. So things are continuing to improve significantly in Q2. The week after the 4th of July, which is kind of where we're at now, we're seeing pretty significant numbers spiking in shipments again. And so that's a really good thing. What that all means ultimately is that inventory is turning over at a really rapid pace in the retailers. Quite simply what that means is if inventory is turning over really quickly, that also means that sales are happening. Again, that leads to more shipments, which means supply and demand for trucks and for carriers are still really strong. I don't think that surprises anyone relative to the demand of freight that we're seeing. For those that are individual, lease operators or owner operators, no doubt you guys see that. When we start digging into some of the indices for shipments, there's a tremendous amount of data. But if I were to just synopsize this into one statement, it really comes down to this: freight levels are the highest that they have been since 2007. So, you know, we're looking at 11 years worth of data. That's incredibly strong, right? That's incredibly strong. When you look at the timelines between 2014, 2015, you see a really significant dip in our economy for a whole host of reasons. But, you know, where we're trending now, again, if you look, a lot of the data on a lot of the indexes will tell you strongest we've been since 2007. That's great news, right? I mean, that's incredibly great news for us in the transportation industry as well. So, as a lot of us understand, carriers have direct contracts with customers, right? And we've had some in the past. Typically, we all understand. If you don't understand, what happens is you have an agreement, a contract with a customer. And that customer says, we're going to pay you X dollars to move this particular lane, right? It may be, I don't know, whatever, Knoxville to Dallas, and we're going to pay you X dollars for that, and sometimes that includes a fuel surge or what have you. What I really want to talk about in this is the number of rejections on the load tenders. When you start to analyze this and you look at a lot of the other data that's been compiled, some really interesting data comes out of this. So the shipments index, the rejection index has really started to transform since ELOGS has come about. When I see ELOGS coming about, I don't necessarily mean the soft start in December. I really mean the hard start right later into March. So what we're seeing now are relatively high number of rejections in certain categories. Where we see the lowest number of rejections, meaning runs that are being declined, right? I don't want this tender, I don't want that run. So where we see the lowest number of rejections are runs under 100 miles, right? Those are the runs that are being consumed by carriers, truckers, owner-operators, etc., at the highest level, right? The rejection loads were like 8% or something like that. What's really telling, and I honestly think this is great to see. What's really telling is when you look at those tenders in between that 450 mile and 800 mile run, those are the runs that are being rejected at the highest level. How high? 34%. More than 1/3 of every run that is tendered out is being rejected that's in that 450 to 800 mile window. When you start to dig into that, what you determine real quickly is, why might that happen? Well, that 650 to 800 mile run is a 2-day run, right? A lot of carriers aren't interested in that. They're interested in the shorter runs. Oftentimes those pay better. And so I think that's a real telling, I think that's telling information, because what that implies, at least at some level, is that carriers are getting smarter relative to the hours available that they can run because of ELOGS. What that tells you on the other side of that is there's going to be a lot of demand for runs that are within that range. So if you are offered a run within that range, you should know right off the top that 1/3 of those runs are being rejected, right, from consumers. That means they're ending up on the spot market, is what that means for those of us, or for those of you that run the spot market. When something ends up on the spot market, what's in that range, you should automatically use this information as a negotiating tool. Not necessarily the fact that you need to spout that data off. The fact that you know that doesn't really add value to the broker necessarily, but in the back of your mind, you need to know that that is a run that has been rejected from a tender. It's ending up on the spot market. It needs to go, again, because of the retail spending, because of the turnover in the markets. Retailers need this product because things are flying off the shelves because of the state of the economy. That should help you understand how you should be pricing those runs more aggressively. right? A lot of this stuff comes because I'm looking at our numbers, our data. How are we performing relative to our revenue and our profit? Are we where we should be? Can we be better? If so, how do we be better? How do we be better? Where should we be better? Right? What runs do we want to be targeting? Where's the weak spot? Where's the weak link in the chain that I can take advantage? And that 450 to 800 mile run is the weak link, right? A really significant amount of freight is being rejected there. So that's where we want to target, right? That's probably where you want to target as well. You know, carriers are just beginning to think differently, right? One of my very first videos on my first channel, I said, this industry, and I think it's not that I know more than others, I just know some things that are different, right? These are the kind of things that you want to be digging into. If you're a lease operator or an owner operator, or you're a carrier, these are the things that you want to be digging into, researching, reading, and understanding, identifying where is your weak link, where can you take advantage of this entire market, where can you get your biggest bang for your buck. Let's see. There's a lot of talk. I've heard this for several years now about a lot of the warehouse, the Amazons of the world. Are they good for trucking or are they bad for trucking? And I don't know that I have a strong opinion. I see both sides of the argument and the debate. Irrelevant what my opinion is on it, what I think is really valuable is that warehouses have increased in their hiring rate since 2000 and was it 2007 or 2008? I think it was 2008. 52%. So really, really strong increase over the past 10 years or so. The dogs are in the pool acting like idiots. So 52%, right? Basically over the last 10, 11 years in the warehouse sector. What's interesting is transportation, trucking has increased at 10%. So we have what we know undoubtedly is that when warehouse entities or e-commerce companies like Amazon, when they are being highly successful, certainly that means that shipping is positively impacted in the regard of number of shipments that need to be made, right? Take dollars, rate per mile, things of that nature off the table. Quite simply, if they're being successful, these e-commerce sites or warehouses, that means that numbers are increasing as well. Retail environments really haven't, they just haven't caught up, right? It was sort of devastated back in 2008. They're I think at, what was it, like 7.5 or somewhere between 7 and 7.5%. So their numbers are not nearly as strong as the warehouse space. Now, relative to trucking, what we are beginning to see is, the transportation industry. I think part of the concern is are drivers going to be leaving this space to go work in the warehouse industry? And I think some of the consensus and some of the data, what they're stating is, jobs and pay relative to transportation is increasing as well. And so probably the answer is sort of probably not. The fact of the matter is, trucking has been hiring new drivers. It's nowhere near at the pace to overcome what the economy is doing to us now, what our needs are, and things of that nature. So new drivers are being added. Truck consumption, I thought this was a fascinating data point as well. It didn't provide all of the data because it's missing a lot of the independent operators that are making purchases for trucks, and that's a noticeable number. But if you look at just the main OEMs that are out in the market, kind of year over year, they are increasing their productivity about 25%. So they're trying to build 25% more trucks than they were last year, right? In the last couple of years, per month, right? That's really significant growth. If you're trying to order a new truck, plan on waiting 8 to 10 months, right? Plan on waiting. Duke. I'm assuming you guys can hear that. He's staring right at me, barking. Hey, knock it off. If he wasn't soaking wet, I'd bring him in. Anyways, so that's really strong, right? You get into used truck sales. There's a lot of data there. I won't bore you guys with that. The whole point of this first 15 minutes is to say kind of the snapshot of what we're seeing in rates. Some of the information that I look at to determine where should we be focusing our trucks, what loads should we be targeting on the spot market to try to get the most dollar for every mile that we're going to run, right? Because if you feel like you're not being profitable enough, that's where you want to start dissecting where you want to play. Where do you want to play? What sandbox do you want to play in, right? Is it West Coast, East Coast, Midwest? What length of runs? All those sorts of things you need to begin to dissect. And so I say all that to say this. I got an email today, and I told the gentleman that I was going to respond to his email with this video. But I'm gonna keep the company's name. I'm gonna keep his name out of it. We'll call him Sam. All right, let's call him Sam. I'm gonna keep his company's name out of this. It's a really long email. I'm gonna kind of give you the real short version of it. Essentially, this individual has been driving for a while, and he works for a really large company where he's home every night. He had mentioned that he makes somewhere in that 1,800 to 2,000 grand a week. Great benefits, 401k, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's sort of the baseline. But he sort of mentions, I kind of have this. I sort of have this. I have diesel in my veins, he said, and I'm really concerned or really curious if I should take the leap of faith, leave this driving job. And he has been, let me just give a little bit of back history here. He and a few business partners ran a small 7-trucking company a few years back. So his question is, do I leave the job that I'm at now and go sort of pursue an owner-operator with his own authority, or potentially, some type of a lease, looking for the right opportunity with a lease company? Do I leave to go chase some of the crazy rates that he's reading about and hearing about, or does he stay where he's at? And I think that's a great question, because I receive some of these kinds of emails or questions time to time. I think that's something that's on everybody's mind, right? Just like we talked about, if you're a carrier or a lease operator or an owner operator, where are you targeting your focus to make your biggest bang for your buck? I think a lot of other people are looking at, if I'm a CDL holder, where can I go make the most money right now? All indications are that the economy is going to remain really strong throughout all of 2018. 2019, wait, hide and watch, right? Hide and watch. But would you recommend this individual leave to kind of go pursue, scratch that itch, if you will, of the open road, the ability not to have or not to be forced dispatched, to go pursue that passion and that sort of thing, right? Be able to go and as he kind of alluded to, be able to take trips to locations in the country that maybe he wants to go see and that sort of stuff. He's got a 16-year-old as well. He's homeschooled, and kind of had the conversation of maybe bringing his son out on the road and allowing him to experience and see some of the things out in the country. I think that is a great idea. If you can take your son out or your children out, allow them to see different parts of the country and that sort. I think that's great. Back to the original question: would I suggest that he leave that job to go pursue it? The answer, I think, is, truthfully, it warrants a lot more discussion, a lot more questions to be asked. He did provide some of his financial information and that sort of thing. I won't go into that, but if I make some assumptions on this, I would be really hard-pressed Well, let me say this. When I talk to individuals about, hey, should I change? Should I go owner op or lease op or company? What should I do? There's sort of that scale, right? And there's a lot of factors in this. So you sort of have to put your respective factors on each side of the scale. At its most simplest form, I think it boils down to the amount of pay that you make coinciding with the amount of home time, right? The more someone makes, maybe the less home time they're willing to take. The more home time they have, quite often, the less they need to make to a degree, right? Those are sort of the two most important factors that most drivers will tell you weigh on their mind or their family's mind. Now, aside from those two, there's a lot of other pieces to this puzzle that you guys have to individually determine what's most right for you. In my opinion, that $1,800 for a company driver, that $1,800 to $2,000, 401k, good benefits, home every night. I don't hear those numbers often. To me, that's sort of the best of both worlds, right? I just don't hear many other company drivers making those kind of numbers and being home every night. Would I recommend it? I don't know that I would or that I wouldn't. Again, I just think there's a lot of variables that only you can answer. There is a lot of risk when you get into the lease op, the owner op game. So along with that adventure, right, as you referred to it, there's just a tremendous amount of risk, right? You have had that experience, and so I think that bodes really well for your ability to be successful on that space. Whereas I think a lot of others are going into it blind. It's far more challenging for them. They have that learning curve that they have to endure, and it's usually about an 18-month or so learning curve, right? It's just really difficult. I think you're the only one that can answer that question. I think there are probably a lot of drivers that may come across this video that would suggest that you don't leave, right? I think the positives are maybe you get to pursue that passion, that adventure. I'm assuming that the company that you're with wouldn't allow, well, quite frankly, as you said, you're home every night, and I know where you live. I'm not going to disclose that, but you're probably not going to get to some of those far corners of the country, you know, in the job that you're currently in, right? I don't know. That would be a tough one to forego, right? A tough one to forego. He also mentioned that one of the problems, one of the kind of the big uglies at this company, he's got a lot of really young individuals, like mid-20s, that are his manager. You are always going to have difficult managers, right? It's just really rare that you're going to end up at a company where you're not going to have someone that's a pain in the ass. Whether that's your direct manager or your boss's boss, you're always going to have that, right? And if you think that you're going to avoid that by starting your own company or going to work, getting your own authority, that sort of thing, that's not the case. It's just not. Because all you're doing is replacing maybe that direct line manager that might be 20-something with a broker that might be 20-something. That's just as demanding, just possibly as deceitful. So I think all you're really doing is replacing one negative thing with potentially a new negative thing. Now, the upside is you're going to have a new broker that you're going to work with likely every day, right? Or every few days, a couple times a week. So I don't know that really should be maybe a motivating reason to exit stage left. I think you're just sort of giving up one problem to maybe incur other problems. So, in fact, I would argue that if you know what that problem is, you can work to resolve the issues with that immediate problem. Having to deal with new brokers or new shippers or new problems every day, I think is far more challenging, right? You're dealing with unknown. So I think it'd be far easier to resolve that. So I guess my long-winded answer is I don't know what you should do. I think that's individual. It's an individual decision for you and your family. But I will tell you that I think there are a lot of drivers that would love to have what you have, which is $1,800 to $2,000 a week and home every night. I think that's pretty rare. So I'll try to jump into some of the comments here and see what some of the other people are saying. Progressive Trucker, Truck Driver Survival. Thank you guys. I appreciate the super chats. Probably buy some dog food for that. Let's see. Barb, Kevin, Jim, Brent, Dash Cam, Keith, Tommy, Sugar Shine, a whole bunch of you guys. Good evening. Welcome. Tommy Reed, is it safe to watch this and drive? Is it important? I can't miss it. I don't know if it's that important. Joe Harding, welcome. Joe Harding's working on a spreadsheet as we speak, or he was. Marcarius, how are you, man? Let's see here, who else? A couple questions. Am I gonna run with Team Mike? I'm not gonna run. I don't think anybody would want me in their truck. No, I don't, that would not be good for anybody. Nobody would want that. Although Cannell, I shouldn't say that. Cannell, really, I mean, Cannell did say that he would train me if I got me my CDL, or not, maybe not train me, but at least take me out for a couple weeks. He really, that's just selfish nonsense. He just wants to capture the nonsense and what have you of me failing epically probably every hour. That's all he wants. He's just doing it for views. More money, more money. That's right, Travis. You bet. Randall Action, I want to get back into trucking so bad I can taste it. That's sort of what this gentleman said, is he just sort of has that, you just got to say, he's just got diesel in the veins. And Randall, like I was talking right at the beginning, I'm not sure when you came in this, I guess pretty early. Now's a really good time. Now's a really good time to be into trucking. For all those reasons I cited the first 15 minutes of the video, for those of you that came in late, basically give a snapshot of state of the economy, a lot of the data, a lot of the metrics as it relates to trucking, what's going on and why now is a really good time. Amazon takes forever. You mean to load and unload, I'm assuming? Let's see, G43, being a leased on owner-op, I'm shifting more towards charging by the hour more than by the mile. Yeah, I mean, well, that's fine if you can do that, for sure. And I understand, I guess, why you would say that. I mean, we've certainly seen, and I said this a long time ago, we're still not there. You know, you look at some of the warehousing numbers that I cited earlier, they're hiring at 52% over the last several years. Snapshot, that bodes well. As I said a long time ago, several months back, I believed that shippers and receivers were the least prepared component, if you will, or division of the supply chain relative to e-logs. I think that's proven itself out, right? I don't think there's any debate. I don't think anybody would argue with me on that. We're still seeing longer loading and unloading times, although it seems to be creeping down some, which is good, because it sure couldn't get much worse. Gary Roach says, 2,400 for a load from Wisconsin to Kentucky. No one in their right mind would haul that cheap rate, period. Matt Collins, I didn't get the notification. YouTube's up. YouTube does that sometimes. Little Viking, will you invest in my new chain of topless truck washes? Is that like topless truck drivers washing trucks? No, I will not, Little Viking, no. Chris Tillman, rates are insane right now. Booked a loader today, $3,300 for 400-mile OD run. What is an OD? I don't know what an OD run is. I learn something new every day. What's an OD run, Chris? Sugar Shine, I'm managing truck washes. I see magic happening between Sugar Shine and Little Viking. Oh, overdimensional, gotcha. Ed McLean. Ed McLean's, yeah, thumbs up, you bet. Heavy duty, making $2,000 a week as a company driver, home every night. Seriously, look, I'm just sharing with you what the email said. I don't know what his, I told him I was gonna try to do the live feed at 5. I was an hour late, so shame on me. I don't know if he's in here watching or not, but yeah, that's what he said. And again, in my opinion, in fact, I even talked to Howard about this earlier. You know, I said, hey, I just want to get a driver's perspective, you know, on your take on this. And I said, there's no way in the right mind that I could really encourage him to go do anything besides what he's doing. Again, if I'm just looking at the dollars and cents and what most drivers are after, again, I think most drivers would kill to have that, right? I think most companies, most carriers would kill to be able to offer that for their drivers. Right, so I mean, I think it's more than just drivers wanting. I think carriers would love to offer that for their drivers. So, but again, just because that's what I see or what a lot of other individuals see, you know, he may just be tired and bored of it and want to do something different. And you can't blame him for that. If you're going to bail and you're going to go, now is a good time to do that, right? I mean, you can't argue that for sure. Gary Roach says he's making crazy money, hauling his ass off, running grain. Gary also says, 2 comments later, if he's making that kind of money, where do I sign up? That's kind of my point. Progressive Trucker says, tell him to take the leap, and then I can apply there. Yeah. Again, that just seems like a really, I mean, again, right, 401k, huge plus. Benefits of this company, I suspect, I know the company, he told me the company, I don't know what their benefits package looks like. It's a really large company. I'm assuming it's really strong. I just, you know, again, the only way I could tell, and I don't know that I could even tell, like if he were sitting down here with me, tell me all the reasons and all the details as to why, ultimately I would just, all I can say is you've got to make that decision, right? But know that what you have is probably top 1% of what most guys would kill for, right? I mean, you're in that top 1%. Again, relative to pay and home time. And I think that's what most drivers sort of balance. And there's a whole lot of other things on each side of the scale, right? But probably the 2 biggest things, if I were to go to the truck stop right now and ask 100 drivers, you know, I'm probably going to get, that's going to be the majority of those 2 things, pay and home time. Gary now says he's full of crap for making that kind of money as a company driver. Look, Gary, you and I don't know each other than from this medium. You are not the most positive person on the planet, right? I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but let's assume the guy took the opportunity to look, the guy didn't ask me for anything other than advice, right? So I don't know why he would lie when he's just looking for advice of, should I stay? I mean, is there any reason why I shouldn't go, right? So I don't know why he would lie. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. B King, yes, we absolutely, yeah. In fact, we're hiring as well. And for those that are gonna ask the question about a lease op, we're getting closer. I was on the phone with attorneys the last couple of days, so patience, Grasshopper, patience, we're close. That company, Matt, is I can think of very few companies that are more stable, right? That's a great question. I can't think of, I mean, they are certainly in the top 5 companies that I think of as far as if you say, name one of the most stable companies on this planet, they would be one of the 5 that come to my mind. Tib G43, and he alluded to that. He's like, man, am I just an idiot thinking the grass is always greener? And here's the thing, guys. Here's what we all know, right? The grass is greenest where you water it. And oftentimes we get tired, we get stale, we get frustrated and this and that. But I think sometimes we sort of we need somebody just to freaking, you know, slap us around and say, and shake us, right? You know, baby shake us to be like, hey, what you have is really pretty good, right? You got some kids that are managing you. You know what? That could happen anywhere. You're going to replace that with brokers. What's worse? I don't know his situation. I do deal with brokers. tough argument, right? Like I said, at least you have a known problem and you can work every day to resolve that problem. When you have something new every day, you don't know what you're dealing with. Let's see, Delano, I'm sorry if I missed that. Delano, how are you? Joey Eyeglasses, the drive-away driver. How many trucks do you run? I'm not sure who you're talking to. If you're talking to me or this guy or somebody else. Gary says, how many people in the trucking industry that don't give a shit about the industry? Guess if you got a college degree, makes you someone in the trucking industry. I don't know. I don't think that's true, Gary. Well, let's be honest. I don't think that's true. Some of the more knowledgeable people in this industry don't have college degrees. Look, I think for the most part, what does a college degree really mean? A college degree means really one thing. It means that, it probably means a couple of things. Ultimately, you'd like to think that means you're more intelligent. I know a whole lot of people that have MBAs that I don't consider intelligent at all. I know people that have that barely graduated high school that are far more intelligent and articulate than people that have MBAs. So I don't know if that's the case. I think what a college degree means is that you just kind of stuck with it. Having said that, there's plenty of people that got out of high school, went and did a trade or welding or whatever, construction, truck driving, whatever, that are highly successful, very articulate, do a lot of research. I don't put nearly as much merit into college degrees as maybe a lot of people do. Progressive Trucker, I'm glad you enjoyed the first 15 minutes. A lot of data that is very applicable to those of you that are lease ops or owner ops. QOL says, hi Scott, driver turnover 138%. In some cases, do the figures show what happens to those drivers? To some degree, yes. What we see is just a lot of turnover, right? And what you see is some individuals leaving the industry, but again, what the numbers sort of show is that there is a 10% growth relative to the industry, QAL. So the number might be 138 that's sort of turning over, but relative to the number that are leaving versus the number that are coming in, we're plus 10% on the positive side. So slow growth for new drivers coming into the market. Scott Harrow says, leave the company in good terms. Make sure you can go back to the company. Go out there, give it a try. If you don't like it, come back to the company. And some of those companies allow that for sure. So I'm a big fan of people chasing their dreams and taking a chance. I really am. And that's why that's why it's really tough to say, man, I would do this or I would recommend that. Because I don't know all the details. Even if I spent an hour at dinner with this guy, I still wouldn't know all the details, right? So ultimately they have to make those decisions. But I guess my advice is grind into a lot of the data, look at a lot of the pros and cons and try to make your most right, best decision. That's tough. Let's see, Joey Eyeglasses, Amazon is taking over. Amazon is, I think Amazon's good for trucking in some degrees. I think in some degrees that has maybe a slightly negative impact as well, but I think overall, I think my opinion is that Amazon is good for trucking. Today. What Amazon is going to look like a year from now, I'm not sure, but as of today, I think it's good. I don't know, am I lagging? My Wi-Fi looks like it's strong. Jack says drivers are getting older, fatter. I don't see a lot of young people coming into the field. Man, you know what, Jack, honestly, I did some stuff out. I did some surveys, actually. I was talking to drivers here. It's probably been 2 or 3 months ago. I saw a lot of younger drivers coming in. And so I don't know, I see younger guys coming in, younger people coming in. TJ, how are you, man? Am I actively recruiting? No, Jack, we're not actively recruiting, believe it or not. We don't. No, that's a lie, actually. I did just ask them to put up some driving jobs on a couple of the job boards about a week or so ago. So that's not true. So that's technically, we're actively recruiting. Victor, I see that you're on. So all right, everybody, let's see. There's Victor. Victor is on. Victor, I don't know if you jumped on for the entire video or now. But Victor is the one. So again, I mean, ultimately, Victor, it's really, like I said, it's really tough for me to say which way to go. I think you have, if you choose to leave and sort of follow that adventure and that scratching of that itch, now's a really good time to do that. But man, it sure seems like you'd be passing up on a really good opportunity relative to what most drivers are after. Buck Wild's in the, man, how are you, buddy? I owe you a call back from like 3 weeks ago. Give me one more, give me until like middle of next week, Ron, and then let's talk maybe, can we talk like Wednesday or so? I think it'll be a lot more productive conversation than the last two. Good evening, shit in the bag. Dashcam Sam says company gigs are more secure. Owner-op is good. Is in good climate. It still has. It does have a lot of risks. You're absolutely right. Trucker background check. Who's next on my list? Who knows? You tell us. Allie Rain says you're still going to have company drivers, aren't you? Yes, we are. Absolutely, we sure are. So if you know somebody who's looking for a company job that you guys think might fit well for what we do, not just for how we run, that's critically important, but also from a culture standpoint, thetruckingexec@gmail.com. Walt Smith. I don't think shippers and receivers were prepared for the effect ELDs would have on drivers' hours of service availability. Couldn't agree with you more. 101% I agree with you. But they will have to rethink how they do things. Walmart has stopped their fines. Of course they have, right? A lot of these guys have to rethink what they're doing. It's highly problematic. If you're a lease op, owner op, or carrier, you have to have language in there relative to the amount of time that you're spending getting loaded and unloading, because now more than ever, and I'm surprised we haven't seen it more. I saw it a lot more last year, and I'm surprised I haven't seen it as much this year. And what I'm referring to is we've got individuals that are sitting in a dock and they're waiting 2 or 3 or 4 hours to get loaded. They're still not loaded. Guys jumping on a load board, securing another load that's an hour away, that's like the proverbial hot load, and they just like, I'm out. I'm not gonna sit here and wait for 2 or 3 hours for you guys to get your crap together, and me get paid $50 an hour for detention. I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna go grab this other load, I'm gonna get loaded, get the hell out of here, make my money, and start turning and working through my hours. So there was a lot of that going on last year. We don't see that as much now, or at least I'm not aware of it as much. Not saying that it still doesn't happen. Victor says, I guess, do you think the question is, do you think the pain will last enough for someone to go out and buy a new truck in a couple years and pay it off? Let me reread that. Do I think this pain, what are you talking about pain? Will last enough for someone to go out and buy a new truck in a couple of years? Look, here's the problem, right? If you caught the first 15 minutes of the video, OEM truck manufacturers are increasing their productivity, their production by 25%. There's an 8 to 10 month delay. If you order a new truck today, plan on receiving it in about 9 or 10 months. So what that also means two other things. That means the price for that truck, there's not going to be a really significant negotiation on that truck, because if you don't take it, then another guy will tomorrow. That also means that used trucks value are going to be increasing, right? So so it's not like I don't think you're going to find some steal on a truck. I don't think you're gonna find that right now. It all boils down to, so I guess I would say, I would plan on, unless you're just gonna, and I don't know your family, I don't know a lot of the details. I don't know if you're married and how many kids you have and how much home time you have to spend, how often you gotta be back home. I don't know any of those details, but unless you're sort of in an environment where you can be out for 6 or 8 weeks at a time and you can just sort of run crazy hard, I would plan on, it's going to probably take you, 4.5 to 5 years to pay off truck and trailer. Is that worth the risk to you? Now, at the end of that term, right, so two things have to happen. You've got to run really hard for the next 5 years. Now, if rates are what they are today, maybe you got to run hard for 4 years. Maybe if you save really judiciously, you can pay the truck off in 4 years. You've got to assume that rates are going to stay where they're at for 4 years. Is that going to happen? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. If they do, okay, fine. If they don't, man, now you're kind of behind the 8 ball. At the end of the term of the lease or purchase, you're going to have, if you run really hard, by meaning 120 to 140,000 miles a year, you're going to have a truck that's going to have a lot of miles on it. So I don't know. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of factors at play. I think you're going to have to run really, really hard to make the same kind of money that you're making now, or maybe just a little bit more. But that little bit more, I don't believe at all covers your loss of benefits or 401k. So in my opinion, and I talked to some guys that run crazy hard. Run crazy hard, okay? And I know their numbers, and really detailed numbers. And $1,800 to $2,000 a week plus 401k plus benefits, I still think that you might be ahead at the end of the year, not including home time. I'm not even talking about home time. I'm just talking dollars and cents. So it sort of comes down to, are you passionate about chasing that dream? Or, if you want to see the Northwest with your son, stay where you're at, take some stinking vacation, rent a car, jump on a plane, fly up there and take 3 or 4 days vacation, travel around, right? Here's my take on this as well. Like when rates, there are times in every industry when you have a compelling advantage, a window of opportunity. Typically that window of opportunity lasts about 18 months to 24 months, right? 1.5 years to 2 years. This is different. We're not talking about a window of opportunity. We haven't created some software or some app or some widget that we have a competitive advantage on. That's not what's happened here. But it's sort of similar in the sense that we have a really strong window of opportunity for as long as rates are this way. If I was a lease operator or an owner operator, I'm running as hard as I can possibly run until the rates dip. I just am, because it's going to happen. And when it happens, I want to be as financially secure as I can. I want to save as much as I can. I want to run as hard as I can. I want to do all kinds of things as hard as I can until things kind of go off the cliff. At that point, then I'm going to have to revisit my game plan, my business strategy, what I'm doing, and I'm going to have to change. And I've got to be quick to change so that I don't suffer. I don't know. It sounds like you have a really good situation. Next gen. Let's see. I'm sorry. Jay Sasso 123092. Mr. Trucking Exec. Love your channel. I'm a first-time commenter. Well, welcome and thank you. Always wanted to ask you this. You always say to close the gap between the truck and the trailer, but what about steer axle weights? Well, obviously you got to be sensitive to that, right? Absolutely, you got to be sensitive to that. I'm just saying the closer you can have that trailer to the back of the cab, and still, and I don't ever say that. I assume that it's known or assumed that you can't be over on your weight, right? So as long as you're not over, you want to have that gap as close as you can. I think I mentioned this in a video a couple of days ago. And I read this, I don't know, I haven't ran the numbers. I don't know if it's factually accurate. I read it. It was on the internet. So anything you read on the internet has to be true, right? And it said, I think it was 4 foot. Any gap that is 4 foot or larger has the same wind resistance as pushing another truck through the wind or through the air. That's a little hard for me to get my head around, but I can kind of see it as well. So yeah, but you got to be sensitive and to the weights for sure. Next gen, I work for a mega carrier, and now I'm at a small company. It fits me at the smaller company. I think if you find something that works for you and not focus on what the popular thing to do is, stay true. Man, I think that's freaking great advice, right? I think that's next gen. I just think that's really good life advice, right? We can find the negative in anything, right? We could find someone that wins Powerball tomorrow, and they can find the negative in it. And so, for this opportunity, again, I would just say, man, kick around everything that you have. Take a really unbiased look at the pros and cons. I think that's pretty good advice to sort of make your list here and here, and kind of think about what you have. Rates are great, and it's so tempting to want to just go chase that. The problem is it's unknown. You don't know how long that's going to be there, right? Next gen, you were in Phoenix. Oh man, I'm sorry about that. I didn't see that message until this afternoon. I wish you would sent me a message on or an email or something like that. I'd have met you for lunch, man. I apologize. Next time you're in town, let me know. Walmart quit charging lumber fees last October. Thoughts on RVT, BS or not? What's RVT? RVT. Sorry, I'm dictating this boom boom in the trucking industry is the problem. RVT God complex. What is RVT? Vet equals cringe. RVT equals, what the heck? I missed it. So Victor, you said, here's the kicker. I have a part-time with an airline. So that email that you sent me was just for part-time numbers? Or you have a part-time opportunity in addition to that? Gary Roach says, if I don't make at least $600 a day after all my expenses for the truck and trailer, when I'm out on the road, I'm losing money at the end of the week. Okay, I'm just glad that you kind of know what that number is. That's good. A lot of guys don't. Let's see, Gary, what are you saying? What you're saying doesn't make sense. Last few comments earlier, you said you pulled 80K after all expenses. Now you're saying you're making 600 times 300 bucks a day, 180 grand gross revenue. You got 5 trucks, you're pulling 900 grand. So now Gary and these guys are going to go battling back and forth. Alice says, before I forget, ran into a number of your followers at the receiver this morning, Scott. That could not have been good. They said to keep it up, good videos on the live ones. Well, cool. Big Steel Trucker, you going to GATS? Red Viking Trucker, RVT. I totally missed that. I am not planning on going to GATS. Here's the thing for trade shows, and I've never been to a trade show in the transportation industry. I have had to partake in trade shows in the past. So I had to go to trade shows when I was sort of a low-level guy, right? I despised every second of it because you got to be there early and stand on your feet all day. Like I despised it, right? When, as an executive, I'd equally despise them because they're a waste of money. All it is an excuse just to go pay for customers to get wasted. Rarely did we ever close any deals there. The only real benefit to it was having a product or your widget or your solution there and have multiple customers come to you. But the costs associated with the booth, I would much rather have just jumped on a plane and gone to the customers directly. So I really hate trade shows. I just think they're a waste of time and a waste of money. So I'm not a particularly big fan of them. Not been one in the trucking industry for really the same reasons. Not a big fan of them. I guess if somebody paid me enough, sure, I'd go. But so RVT, what was somebody asked me. Look, I have had a couple of conversations with Scott. Here's what I can tell you about Scott. A lot of people give him a really hard time. On my first channel, one of my first couple of videos really sort of just it really took off. It got shared and stolen and pirated and everything else. And Scott was the only individual to call me. Well, he actually emailed me or messaged or something and asked me to call him. He emailed me asking if he could borrow that video to post, to sort of edit a video around my video for his channel. The only individual to have the professional courtesy to ask. So, and I've talked to Scott a few times. I think I haven't really watched anybody's videos. I'll watch Jay's or a little bit of Will's every now and then. I really don't watch many videos, a little bit of Ike's. I don't watch a lot of videos in the past several months. No disrespect to any of those people. It's just other stuff's going on. Hey, knock it off. So no disrespect. Some of the stuff that I've seen in the past, I think it's good advice, right? I think there's some good advice there. Hey, do we really have to go through this? You're inside in the air conditioner, they're not. Just relax. So look, I think, I've said this about my channel. Hey, seriously. I'll say this about my channel as well as others. You just need to vet everything that you hear. Whether it's my channel, Red Viking would tell you the same. Anybody else would tell you the same. Canal, so that's my take, right? And I think anybody that wants to take the time, effort to try to push content out that is helpful to people in the industry, hats off to them, right? I may not agree with them all. I may not appreciate if they're charging people, things of that nature. That's my personal opinion, right? And I'm entitled to that. Ultimately, if they're helping and trying to be beneficial to this industry, this space, I applaud that. I don't know who these dogs. I'm dog sitting. They're soaking wet. I mean, I would bring them in. They're barking at the neighbors, I guess. I don't know. Hey, can we knock it off? You mind? Let's see. Gary Roach, if I'm making the money I want my drivers to make, money also, not live from paycheck to paycheck. Maybe I'm wrong for thinking that way, but without drivers, I wouldn't be in business long. Yep, well said. Diego, hey Scott, new follower here. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Lease versus buy for a small 3-truck OTR fleet. Credit and down payment not an issue. Thanks. If credit and so I guess ultimately I would sort of ask this question, a couple questions, Diego. How many miles do you guys run annually? And it's not. This is kind of rhetorical questions. You don't need to necessarily answer it, but I guess the questions that I would suggest to you is, how many miles is your truck going to have at the end of that term? And if you guys have a mechanic, probably not with, would you say 3 trucks? Probably not. You probably don't have a mechanic. If cash isn't a problem to have those trucks, maintained or maintained, I think purchasing is always a good route to go. Full maintenance leases are handy because it sort of guarantees what your cash flow or your cash burn is going to be month to month for the next 5 years or whatever your term is. So you have a level of comfort and stability, although it should probably end up costing you slightly more. At the end of that term, you then have the opportunity to buy that truck. In today's market, the residuals are pretty high because of what's going on in our economy. in 5 years, right? You're just sort of hedging that bet. So I think ultimately it kind of really comes back to how hard are you running these trucks? If you're putting a ton of miles on them and it makes sense, then, you know what I'm saying, then maybe, let's see, 100,000 miles a year. Look, we have some of our trucks are on full maintenance leases. Cash flow is a really big deal for us. So that's a good way for us to go. The residuals are, you know, right now they're okay. So I just think it's a tough question to answer, but I think you want to look at, you know, the cost of money is still relatively cheap if you want to purchase them. If you can purchase, it's usually a better way to go, right? And if cash and credit aren't an issue, or operating line or something like that's not an issue, I would probably purchase if I could. And I would also encourage, Diego, used trucks are spiking a little bit right now. They've not caught up to the level of new truck sales. So there's still a little bit of an advantage, about 6 or 7% advantage for if you find a good used truck. So, you know, that might be a way that you could take some of your investment dollars and maybe buy a couple more trucks and start growing the fleet that way. I'm gonna have to, hey, bear with me, I gotta let this dog in. He's barking. Hey. Hey, come on, let's go. Come on. So help me, you get on the front chair, I'll kill you. All right, sorry about that. Joseph Harding, maybe I'll start a channel. I'll just post videos of the drivers I catch peeing in parking lots. Yeah, no doubt, right? That was pathetic. TS says, I don't know how some of the drivers go through 1,500 in 2 days. Money they come back to work already asking for $50 advance. TS, I've had some of that. I won't go into great detail, but we had a driver that every Monday they were asking for a $200 cash advance every Monday. How much cargo insurance do you have for each load, and does it include cleanup in case it's wrecked? So I won't go into those details for us, but I can answer the last. I don't know the answer to the last part of your question. I don't know if it includes cleanup or not. That's a good question. I've never thought to ask that, so I don't know. I'll look into that. Sugar Shine, are you arguing with the flat earther? Not my dog. Kind of a weird, creepy looking dog. He's a golden doodle. He's cool though. He's a pretty cool dog. Diego, you're welcome. Gary Roach, I pinched pennies for years to buy a truck. Had to beg a bank to loan you money to buy the trailer, but the long run, it's worth it. Good for you, Gary. I'm glad it worked out, man. Johnny R, how are you, man? There's a gentleman sent me an email looking to kind of, he's got what I think to be kind of a really good opportunity where he's at based on his email. He was kind of pondering whether or not he should maybe make a jump to go to a different place. So that's sort of the purpose of the video. The second half of the video, the first 15 minutes of this video is just a lot of data on rates, lanes, the state of the economy and stuff like that, that I look at to determine where we should be focusing our trucks to make the most money. So kind of 2 videos in one. Yeah, no, they've been swimming in the pool for the past hour. Yeah, haven't you, huh? Yeah. It's kind of weird looking. Here, I'll show you guys. It's kind of a weird, huh? You're kind of weird looking, really. Everybody's looking, everybody's thinking that you're kind of weird looking. Yeah. Let's see. Don't believe me. You should have seen what he did to my pool. That's funny. All on my trailer in 2021 if everything goes right. Good for you, Gary. Johnny says I spend all day on DAT booking 5 trucks. Good for you, man. Good for you. Yeah, he's cute. Well, here's the funny thing. So my dogs don't sleep in the bed. So his owners dropped him off last night. So whatever it was, I don't know what time it was. I said, all right, let's go to bed. So I go to the bedroom. Dog 1 comes in, gets in her bed. Dog 2 comes in, Briggs gets in his bed. Dude, this dog, the golden doodle, he walks in, doesn't miss a beat, like he owns the place, hops right in bed, and is like, all right, cool, let's go to sleep. I'm like, I don't know where you think you're at, but you don't own this place. Get out of here. And he got out of there eventually after I physically pushed him out. I don't know how long he was out of bed, because sometime later I woke up and he's like right here on my face. And so I just gave up. And so he'll be here for the next, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 days or something like that. And there's a huge king bed, right? There's all this room, and he didn't want any part of that other side, which I would sort of be okay with. He's got to be like right next to you. Anyways. And Gracie doesn't care for him, as you can tell. Yeah. All right, longer video than I thought it would. I try to keep it to an hour now. Johnny, we're going to kill this one here in just a minute. Go back and kind of hit the replay, catch it on the recorded side. That's what I've got. Yeah, he will have me trained. Yeah, no doubt. He just hops up on the furniture. It's like he's just, which I know he does that, right? For the people that own him, same thing. They're cool with him getting on the furniture, stuff like that. But he didn't care. He didn't care. He's like, he just fits right in wherever. Gary Rich says, I'm trying to get set up with ADM because they seem to pay really good. Well, again, right? I mean, find those opportunities that work best for you. Jim says, do you need moderators? Maybe you got a wrench in the bag. You know what? Here, hang on, Jim. Let's see. I can do that on this. We'll add a couple here. There, we got a couple moderators there. Cool. All right. Hey, that's sort of it. 2 videos in one. If you're coming in late, first 15 minutes talked about data for the industry and kind of what I look at as maybe something that you might want to consider looking at as well. The last half was more for Victor and kind of just saying, man, I think a lot of people were pondering, should I leave or should I go, right? So that's what we're up against. Friday the 13th. Hope everybody had a safe one. If you guys are making miles, as always, stay safe. You guys take care. See ya.